I think the biggest sign of a sort of system in place that is effective at keeping us trapped is one that we can't really notice. And I think there's very few sort of systems that are more powerful and have been more effective at keeping people trapped and sort of dimming their light than the matrix of identity, and you can even call it ego. Because when you think about who you are, you think about your name, you think about your occupation or the school you went to, your family, your friends, your social life, your hobbies, your passions, and most importantly, your idea of who you are. These are all, like I just said, these are all ideas. This is just a system of beliefs that you and the people around you have chosen to give life and power to. So oftentimes what happens, and especially today, is people become so invested and so accustomed to being the person that they've been all their life that the sort of idea of being able to change who they are feels impossible. And also, it doesn't really feel like an option. And that's because they've been conditioned to believe that the person that they've been for many years is the person that they are sort of destined to be throughout the rest of their life. They believe that every person is born a certain way, and the way that they were born, the way that they naturally sort of unfold their personality and the struggles, anxieties, fears, everything that that comes with is sort of something they just have to deal with instead of trying to break free from. And that's a matrix in itself because the thoughts that you have, the emotions that you experience, the idea you have of who you are, and the character that you believe that you play in society that you have to continue to keep playing, the idea that you have to do that, that's a matrix. And I think it's something that more people are stuck in than anything else. So I guess this begs the question, how do we wake up? How do we escape this matrix? And of course, the first step is realizing that it's in place. And you have to understand that the sort of matrix and ego trap that I'm talking about, it's always going to exist to some extent, right? But what we can do is we can expand the bounds and the limitations of this matrix and manipulate it in a way where we're enjoying the system instead of being held down by it and limited by it. Of course, we have to detach from all of those sort of imaginary ideas that we were talking about before. Detaching from your thoughts as a reflection of who you are, detaching from your identity and the way that you are sort of perceived in society and your social circle and your family dynamics and everything. It's not that we're trying to create some sort of identity crisis or ego death. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to realize that these things are choices. And even if they don't feel like choices because we've been embodying them for so long and they sort of feel natural to just kind of let these sort of unconscious projections occur, we have to realize that the bare root of what's happening, these are choices. These are choices. You choose to be the person you are every single day. And the matrix and the system in place is that you don't have a choice and that who you are portraying isn't a choice, but rather just a default setting and a sort of something you were assigned from the moment you were born. So what we can do is we can bring consciousness and awareness into our life. We can start to see, okay, I can actually choose to be the person I want to be. And the only thing stopping me is the idea that I can't. And now we can talk about logistics. How do you escape the system logistically from a practical standpoint? And that's when repetition comes in. Because the system in place right now that you have sort of hammered in place all these years, it's actually been done by you. And that's the sort of plot twist of the whole thing, is that the system in this matrix of our identity and who we are, it hasn't been created by anyone outside of us. It may have been fed and conditioned and influenced by people outside of us, our family and our friends and whoever else who sort of told us who to be and how to act and everything like that. But it's always been us that has been sort of repeating the same behaviors, repeating engaging with the same sort of thought processes and repeating believing in an idea of who we are and how we project ourselves. It's always been us. And the system and the bricks and building blocks of this matrix is repetition. If we want to escape the system and matrix of identity, we have to flip it on its head and use the way it works in our favor. So instead of allowing ourselves to sort of unconsciously move through life, we bring conscious, repetitive action into our life. So we start to see that the person that we are is completely in our control, and that by going beyond our fears, by going beyond our negative thoughts and our anxieties, we can start to become a different person, and naturally our brain will start to feed us the thoughts and sort of even chemicals and emotions of what it is like to be that version of ourselves that we've repeated so many times and we've acted like we were so many times. In reality, what we are at the sort of base layer is we are a human, and we are the awareness and we are the presence and acknowledgement of where we are right now. What else can we truly attribute to who we are as an individual? We have our body that we automate and have agency over. We have our actions, our choices. That is the projection of who we are. And then we have the very awareness of these two things. That is all that exists in reality. Everything else is an idea, whether we like it or not. And that's why a lot of people who are very attached to the material, and this isn't a bad thing, I'm not sort of taking a jab at materialism as a whole, but people who are very attached to the way that others perceive them. So, for example, if they went to school and they were the most popular person, they will feel very, sort of disappointed and sort of even go through a life crisis if they were to switch schools and they are no longer a, popular person in that school. And this isn't because their worth or their value has changed in any way, but it's just an environmental change. But what happens is why they'll suffer so much is because they held the weight of who they were. They gave themselves and their life value based on their popularity in the past. The more we look around at our life, the more we can see these sort of themes present. What are we looking at to find and determine our worth, our value, and who we are? If you want to understand who you are, where do you look? Who do you ask? The truth is, you can't really ask anyone because everything that they're going to give you is an idea. If you go around asking 100 people who you are, you might receive 100 answers. You might receive 10 to 15 answers that are pretty close proximity to each other and labeling you as the same sort of traits, and that might be who you believe you are, and that might be the person you've been projecting being for a while. But then you sort of move towards the bottom 75, 50 people you ask out of 100, and suddenly the answers that they give start to become blurry. You start to question yourself. Do they really perceive me in that way? Am I really that type of person? And the answer is you could be 1,000 people to 1,000 different eyes. To 1,000 different observers, you could be a different person. So when we hang the weight of who we are, when we find identity in the way that those ideas come to fruition, out of the way that those people perceive us, it's a crisis waiting to happen. And not only that, it's a matrix. And it's only one facet of it as well. Another facet, and there are many, and these all can be abolished by the simple idea of understanding who we are at our core. And that what surrounds us is ideas, and that's not a bad thing. But if we want to improve our life, if we want to sort of take creative control over our life and find real agency, then we need to understand the true essence of what each human is and how we are investing and how we are repeating behaviors and ideas to create a version of ourselves that we play and give life to in society and in reality. So escaping that sort of system looks like this. You listen to a recording such as this. You either listen on Spotify or you're watching on YouTube, and you start to ponder and you say, damn, these things really aren't real, are they? Who my parents think I am, I mean, that's just an idea. That's just a character in their head. Who my friends think I am, that's just another character. And most importantly, the opinion that I have about who I am and how I fit into the world is just another idea. It's just another opinion. Of course, your opinion and your belief of who you are and how you fit into society is the most important out of everyone else's, but it's also just an opinion. If you were to ask 100 people how they perceive you, and all of them had very similar answers, and yours was different, which one is correct? They're the majority. They're the ones that spend the most amount of time with you. And maybe they can see you from a perspective that you can't because you're too tangled in your own inner monologue and your own inner struggles and fears and anxieties. And that's what's so important. Because in another way, we'll take this sort of paradigm and we'll use it to fuel other anxiety and other limitations. Because now we start assuming that other people have the same opinion about ourselves that we have about ourselves. And this is also flawed. Whether we believe everyone likes us, that's setting us up for a sort of crisis in a way where one or two negative opinions are going to send us down a spiral of sadness and emotional discomfort. Or in the other way, if we believe that everyone is sort of judging us and thinks that we're weird or out of place, whatever, that's just going to create more anxiety and stop us from putting ourselves out there and doing the things we really want to do in life. And neither are true. Neither are true. And this is the entire system and matrix that's in place, is that you believe that all these ideas and your worldview and your perception of who you are, you believe that this is an objective fact in reality when it's not. You refuse to acknowledge that you are a subjective participant in feeding the opinions of your place in this world. And if you can't understand that your opinion is just another opinion, then we have some work to do in terms of laying the foundation of how we can actually escape the system and change our lives. Because what happens is your opinion is just another opinion, but your opinion can influence the way your mind operates, and your opinion influences your life. And you can change your opinion of yourself through repetition in two separate ways. Number one, as you do more things out of your comfort zone, you start to build a confidence because you are seeing proof, you're seeing results. Why wouldn't you be confident in yourself? Because you've seen that you can continuously go out of your comfort zone and push yourself beyond the bounds you thought that you were capable of. And number two, you're training your mind through repetition to establish better and more positive beliefs and self association. And this is happening at a physical level as well. Neuroplasticity is coming to effect, and your mind is literally shifting its operations and its neurotransmitters and adapting to new experiences. This is also conditioning. And the entire system, the entire matrix is conditioning. And how we break free, how we really change our lives in a radical way, where it almost feels like we're moving through a dream, is through conditioning ourselves in a way where we have control. Because we're going to be conditioned either way, by our friends, by our family, by our life, by our environment. We're going to be conditioned either way. We're going to exist in a system and matrix either way. But you can feel emotional freedom within the system. We don't have to break the system apart. We don't have to break the matrix apart, our inner sort of idea of who we are and our ego and our self. We don't have to break anything. So we don't have to destroy them. We just have to alter them in a way where we feel more confident with how we're projecting and how we're existing in that said identity and in that said character. We have to play and we have to exist in a self, in an ego, and in a character that brings the most benefit to our life from a spiritual standpoint, a philosophical standpoint, and a material/practical standpoint. Because it becomes a lot easier to feel emotional freedom when the physical and material things in our life have kind of been checked off. It would be slightly negligent in this time and age to believe that we can just do the inner work without projecting and doing anything on the outside. The main and sort of final caveat here is the power of belief. And the reason I preach neuroplasticity so much is, of course, it is the key to breaking out of this matrix. It is a key to breaking out of this system. But it's also because your beliefs, what you believe deep in your heart, can be trained. And if you associate who you are with your beliefs, that's the matrix. That's the sort of hidden trap that we can't really notice until we observe ourselves in our true essence from a very, very widened point of view. To become anything, you must first acknowledge that we are nothing in reality. We are nothing, and we are forming ideas, and we are building structure in ideas around who we are. But the essence of what it is nothing. Everything around us, society, it works because people are choosing to participate. You know, many of the things in life, they're not structurally real. You know, eating food, taking care of people. I mean, these things are real at a very core physical level, and we sort of need these things to survive. And then you kind of look outside of it and see that everything else is just sort of a participatory thing that we're all choosing to buy into. And that's not a bad thing. We need that. We need that as a society. We need that as individuals. We need these things to thrive. And within community, and especially within our inner self, we need to choose wisely where we are investing our time, our energy, and our attention. It's okay to believe certain things. We are going to naturally be inclined to believe certain things about the world, certain things about ourselves. But the key difference between those two is we can believe something about the world and we can believe things about ourselves. But if those things are making us miserable, we must radically see that those things are not the truth. And even if they're benefiting you, those beliefs, once we create neuroplastic sort of habits and we restructure our mind and we start changing our lives in a way, we can still acknowledge that this is our doing. The enjoyment that we're having out of our life, the sort of growth that we've been doing, it's because we're conditioning ourselves to enjoy our life. Life is not inherently enjoyable, and life is not inherently sufferable, but it is what we make of it. And the true calling and the true introspective wisdom that can come from all of these practices is seeing that we do have the creative power to change our lives in any which direction, whether for good or for bad. We condition ourselves in a bad way or in a good way. We either let the world tell us who we are, we either let our sort of conditioning from the past and trauma, anxiety, and fear, we either let all that stuff tell us who we are and define us to certain boxes and limitations, or we break free of it all and realize in truth that we are nothingness, and that from this nothingness we can plant seeds to becoming any tree that we could possibly desire. And that's the way out, is realizing that this matrix that's in place, this identity, this ego, it's not meant to be destroyed. It's not meant to be broken. It's meant to be altered and shifted and transformed. And this is the case with many things in life. Everything that you are, everything that you exist within, you have the power to change. Everything inside you, your inner world, you are the higher awareness. You are the sort of higher power within your cells, within your mind, within everything in your body. Every cell is looking to you for guidance and wisdom and inspiration. And only through conditioning ourselves to be as we wish can a dream of life truly become a reality where we're enjoying every day and we're living with presence and satisfaction. Thank you guys for listening. If you guys are listening on Spotify, thank you. If you guys are watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.